Hey everybody, welcome to the Divergent Comics YouTube channel. I'm back with another comic creator interview. This is going to be a fun one. I have Paul, who's the founder of Acorn Comics. Paul released a book called Heroes and Zeros. Really interesting book, and I want to talk with him about everything he's been doing with Acorn Comics and with Heroes and Zeros. So, Paul, how are you doing today, man? And tell us a little bit about yourself.
I'm doing great, Gary. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it, and it's like I say, good to see you in person. At least like this. We talked a lot through various social media channels over the last
Mhm.
couple of months. But man, where do I start? When you get old, there's a lot of stuff you can talk when someone says, tell me about yourself.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I guess by day I'm now a recovering attorney. I share that with I think several more established comics folks. But
Okay.
by my day job, I'm a mediator, which is alternative dispute resolution. I live in Florida. Every civil case in Florida has to be mediated before trial, so there's plenty of cases for me to work on with that. And I started writing comics. I think the best way to say it is writing comics was kind of my midlife crisis. Uh, it was I started writing what became Heroes and Zeros back in 2017,
Okay.
right around my 40th birthday, and it was one of those realizations you have when you get to some of those numbers in life, and I was like, you know what, I love my life, I love where we're going with it, but there was nothing that I did that was just for me.
Hmm.
And I was like, and I started thinking about what I could do, what would I want to do that would be just something that I do. And I wrote a lot when I was in high school, and I'm sure it was terrible. I don't have any of it still, but it was something I enjoyed, and at least my friends gave me decent feedback on some of it.
Okay.
Um, but that sort of fell off as you get into college and get into life, and it just, you don't have
Yeah.
time for other stuff a lot of times. So
Hmm.
I hadn't done it for a while, other than legal writing at that point.
Okay.
But I'd had the fortune of being surrounded by a lot of wonderful creators in the comics industry that I met through my wife. She's been doing conventions probably since she was 16, I think.
Oh wow, that's impressive.
And when I say she knows everybody, we're probably not even talking like 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon here. We're talking probably 2 degrees of Constance within the comics community.
Okay.
She doesn't know them. She knows somebody that knows them. Um, and so, I of course read comics when I was a kid, but
Hmm.
then, also, and I started getting back into some of them as I got older. Some of the Incredible Hulk stuff, honestly, because
Ah,
was
nice.
my favorite growing up. The old TV show with Lou Ferrigno and Bill Bixby, and so I started getting into some. Peter David wrote some Incredible Hulk novels
Hmm.
that started getting me back into that, and then I picked up the. I guess I would say either graphic novel, trade paperback of the original Future Imperfect series that he did
Ooh,
with George Perez.
that's a good one.
And that was kind of my reintroduction into comics. But when I got to meet most of these folks, it wasn't like, oh, this is my childhood hero, because when I was reading them as a kid, I didn't know who was writing them or who was drawing them. I just knew I was reading Superman or Justice League or
Yeah.
something like that. So it was like, my wife's just like, oh, here's my good friend George. Here's my good friend, Michael, or whoever it happens to be.
Right.
And then I'm like, well, they became my friends, and I'm like, well, I should go read some of the things my friends did. I'm like, holy, you start
Yeah.
looking. I'm like, oh, okay, so you're that guy.
Yeah.
At that point, it wasn't awkward, because I'm like, okay, you're just a friend,
Hmm.
and it's like, and you do something really cool, and you're really good at it.
That's true. Yeah. Yeah.
So it was that sort of. So I'd been surrounded by all these people, and I'm like, you know what? I want to try my hand at it. I know I can't draw. I'm not even on that road. But I want to see if I can tell a story beginning to end in this format that's something that I could be proud of. And so I started writing, and the final version, even before I sent it to the first to the editor, a guy named Devin R. Scott, who's a phenomenal writer and editor of indie comics, and definitely helped me shape these stories. And make them as good as they are. But I wanted to make sure it was as good as it could be from me before I showed it to anybody. And it took me a while because I was just doing this in my free time. Like I'd get up an hour before work, write for an hour. Maybe if I had a lull in the middle of the day, I'd do a little bit more.
Nice.
Maybe I'd play hooky a little bit because I was working from home even back then. If I was really getting on a roll and didn't have anything pressing,
Yeah.
a judge expecting me to show up in the courtroom or something, I'll make up that billing later. I can, whatever.
Yeah. Why not take a few moments here and there,
Exactly. And so it took me a while. And then I got hooked up with Devin, and again, even though I know a lot of people, I didn't want to cash in on that. Like I didn't want to feel like I was pressuring them. Like, hey, buddy, I know you won like 7 Eisner Awards, but do you want to draw my silly little comic book? That would come on. That would have been kind of cheap,
Yeah.
But so I went through, and honestly, I think I found Casey, the artist, Casey Cabedo, on Twitter on one of the portfolio days that gets put out.
Oh, okay.
And that was whenever those would happen, I'd start looking at different artists. Like when I was starting to think about getting somebody on board, and his, he did a few character designs and a few sample pages, and he hit it right off the bat. Like
nice.
I think, I want to say his the characters. The first one was really close. I made a couple of comments on it, and he came back, and the second version was exactly what you see in the comic today. And
see, that's magic right there.
It is, and it's been like that with Casey. And there was a little bit of a feeling out process at the beginning because we didn't know each other, personally at that point. And so I think he was a little hesitant to really suggest any major changes to anything because he's like, I don't know if this guy's gonna be real strict. Like, no, draw what I wrote. Do exactly like. I was like, no, man. The reason I bring on an artist that I think is this talented is because I want your expertise.
Exactly. Yeah. And
sometimes writing something in my head, it doesn't really click for me that this isn't gonna go well on the page. I need somebody who can see that visually and can put it on the page to really be able to make those suggestions. And so he did. He would do it on a few of them. Like, hey, I think it might go better if I add a panel or I do this, and we talk about it, and it worked out great. And now, I mean, we're about a quarter of the way into the second book. And now he'll just send me the pages like, yeah, I changed this, this, and this. If you don't like it, tell me, change it back.
That's nice.
90% of the time I like it. And I'm like, yep, that's better than what I said. So we'll keep that. And 10% I'm like, how about maybe we do it this other way? And honestly, most of the times when he's done, he's like, oh, yep, I see what you're saying. And it's been a fantastic partnership. I couldn't ask for anything better from him.
That's how you know you have a good artist. When you can give them something and say, hey, this is what I'm seeing. And then they see your vision. They're like, you know what? I see how I can improve upon this by doing this, this, and this. And then they take it to that next level, whether it be by a different piece of line art or by a different way of shading or different color scheme. And you look at it and it's like, you know what? I expected this, but it looks better this way because you changed this. And now the vision is more artistic. So that's phenomenal.
Right. And one of the things I've said, and I have to be careful about this because if I say it wrong, it sounds like a backhanded compliment. I'm not meaning it that way at all. But Casey is a phenomenal technical artist. He's also a fantastic storyteller.
Mm-hmm.
When I'm choosing for a comic book, I'll choose a great storyteller who's maybe not as great a technical artist over a great technical artist who's not a great storyteller any day.
Right.
You get the great artist to do a variant cover for you, but you know,
That's true, yeah.
but that was, even though he is a fantastic technical artist, the thing that sold me on working with him was seeing his storytelling in his art. And one of the things I learned from talking to my wife about this over the years, it's like, if you can look at the page with no letters on it and have a good idea what's happening, that's great art.
That's true, yeah.
And that's what I'm going for with all of these. Like, you know, my words are just kind of the dressing on top.
I like that. So, you know, with all that said, my first question to you, because ever since, you know, you and I kind of connected on Threads, I've been interested to know, where did the name Acorn Comics come from?
That is definitely an inside family, I won't say joke, but it's for my wife and my son. So my wife Constance has been known through the years as the convention squirrel, because if she's at a convention, she is everywhere. She's up and down, she's down, she's running around, and has boundless energy no matter what her role is in that setting. Right. So she's been, like I say, and in fact, she started a convention consulting company called Convention Squirrel LLC. So
That's cool.
she was the convention squirrel. Okay. And when she got pregnant, you know, we found out that our kid was a boy, you know, however early on you can find that out. So luckily for us, when we had talked about names, the boy's name was the one we agreed on instantly. So as soon as we found out he was a boy, we knew his name. Okay. But we weren't going to tell anybody his name, because we figured, hey, what if he comes out and we just look at him, we're like, nah. Like that's not it. That doesn't fit. Right. So we refused to tell anybody his name, and because she was the squirrel, our friends started calling him the Acorn. So that's where Acorn Comics and the logo with the squirrel holding the comic book, that's where it all came from.
I love that logo. It's so unique, you know. Because like you wouldn't think of a squirrel holding a comic book, but it's
that was D Fish, who's the artist on my next book that's coming out, The Olympian. She's done, and D has done a ton of stuff over the years. 20 years, I think it was 20 years ago, she had a web comic called Dandy and Company that ran for a while, and then she currently runs she currently has a web comic called Finding D that's been out for several years. Okay. And she works on Giant Girl Adventures, which I believe is on Webtoons.
Oh yeah, it is.
Did a 2-week guest spot on the Dick Tracy comic strip, like the newspaper comic strip.
Oh, that's sweet.
Yeah, so like Dee's been everywhere. She did she actually did my mediation company logo, because she does, you know, graphic design on the side as well. And so when I needed the logo for the comics, she was right there, like, yep, I got this.
Oh, that's awesome.
Sent it over, and I've been working with her so much. When it came time to do the Olympian, I'm like, you know what? I think this is the type of story that she's going to knock out of the park. So we got her on board with that one. And again, somebody I've known her for years. She's one of my wife's friends, so I've probably known her over 15 years now.
Oh, nice.
Something like that. But yeah, it's a wonderful logo. The Heroes and Zeros logo was designed by a guy, Chris Benamati, goes by the name of Dead Hours. I think is his artist name. but he's one of the publishers for Band of Bards Comics.
Yes.
So I don't
I'm
know.
very familiar with them. Yes, I like their work. I follow them on Global Comics.
They do a lot of good work. Yeah, I'm a big fan, and they've done a lot of work with friends of mine putting that out. Actually, I mentioned Devin, who edited Heroes and Zeros, and he's put out a couple of comics through them.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, I think he's got one on Kickstarter now.
I think so. I have to check again because I'm pretty sure I got recommended it.
Yeah, if you see my posts, then it was one of the ones I recommended.
It was, yes, that's what it was. Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm sorry, I ramble a lot, as you might.
No, you're good. You actually answered 80% of my questions I had, so that was very helpful. But
let's get
Heroes
to
and Zeros. Heroes and Zeros. I read it. I enjoyed it. It's really fun, very unique.
Thank you.
Tell us where that story came from, because there's a lot of undertones that I get from the story that I find personally, as a Black man, as someone that is real deep into history and understanding how social issues have occurred, I find that to be very deep in this story. Was that some of the inspiration for Heroes and Zeros, and what are some other things that inspired it?
It was, yeah, and I think the original idea when it first popped in was, it kind of takes some cues from X-Men, and the idea of X-Men, that all these powers are coming from human evolution, and there was a jump in evolution, and the idea of what if that continues over several generations. Mm-hmm. Well, clearly the answer is at some point the balance shifts, and most people have powers. And then to me, the idea of superheroes in that kind of world kind of goes by the wayside. Like you don't have like a few with these special abilities who are like humanity's protectors.
Right.
They just become humanity. And the flip side of that is what happens to the ones who still don't have those abilities, and where are they left? And it did. I still, like I say, I wanted to make it fun. I wanted to make it a story that still contains, a level of joy that I want to see in comic books.
Right.
There was something else to say with that. And I felt like using that sort of scenario, like, I'm not a historian, and clearly I'm not a Black man, and I can't live those experiences, and I don't know those experiences personally. But just looking back at history, it seems like there's always a group that's the group. And no matter what changes, something always changes, and those groups change. But there always seems to be that separation of the haves and the have-nots.
Yep.
And so when the world changes in this story, the have-nots are the ones without the abilities, but there's still certainly that analogy to the world we live in today. And I wanted to set it with these three roommates who, obviously very different personalities, but I think certainly one common thing between the three of them, the three Zeros, the three people without powers, is these are three people who will do anything for each other. They are absolutely together. Like they're going to be there for each other in their own ways. And when they're thrust into this situation and this stress is put on them, where suddenly they're being hunted by the most powerful people in the world, like literally and figuratively, how do they each react to that stress, and how do they each sort of grow and change from that? And I think you see the beginnings of that in this first issue. You're going to see obviously some more of that from the three of them, and from the characters around them too. But those three are obviously the focus of the story. And by the end, you're going to have, you're going to see three people who will still do absolutely anything for each other, but they've just been through it. And however it ends up ending, like, I'm obviously not going to give that away at this point. But like I've got the whole story written. It's, you know, issues 1, 2, and 3 are all complete and just, you know, waiting to be drawn and put out in the world.
Nice.
So it's I'm really proud of the story. I'm really proud of how it came together. You know, it would not have happened without every single person involved. Like I say, the entire creative team and a few that have helped that didn't specifically want me to name them, but let's just say that a few of the thank yous in the back of the book may have given me some pretty good input on different aspects of the story that really did make it come together a lot better than what I had initially.
Honestly, that's amazing. Like I said, I really enjoyed this story. I had to force myself to put it down so that I can actually do some work.
I love that. Thank you. Yeah. You know, and I'm sorry, but
but I think the thing that I like the most about this story is so well paced. There's oftentimes that I've found when you read a lot of indie comics, a lot of people don't know how to truly pace the story, and they're ready to get into the action pretty quickly. And with this story, I think also the fact that it was a murder mystery adds to like that pacing being done really well. So that's one of the things, like, I could tell you had an editor without seeing that you had an editor, because that's something that an editor would grab.
Gotta have an editor, man.
Yeah, it's important.
You got to, and that's the thing. Yeah, I was gonna say, when you talk about the pacing, Devin and Casey both, because look, man, that the original script was as good as I could make it. Had a lot, like probably 90% of what the story was there.
Mm-hmm.
But man, those two helped me fine tune it to a grace. And part of the thing is, again, one of the things you don't think about if you haven't done this sort of thing before. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I tried to go find online resources and look at things to help me along, but something simple like don't put too many actions in one panel, because how are you going to draw that? Or think about the page turns.
Yeah.
And that was, and it's one of those things like, you know, and this is for me, the story that I relate to with it. And it takes me back to law school. And my first semester of law school, I'd be in my study group and talking to all my friends that I was studying with. And I knew these topics as well as or better than most of them. Like, and, you know, no shade, they're all fantastic lawyers, but like I knew my stuff.
Right.
But man, I was an advertising major in undergrad. Like I did not take an essay test in college, and I went to law school. I think it was like 7 years after I graduated. So it'd been a while.
Okay.
And law school is all essay tests.
Mm-hmm.
So I went in and I got I think a C- in my contracts class. And I sit down and the professor was like, well, you didn't talk about this concept at all in the exam. I was like, well, I didn't see it in any of the questions. Like, look, we spent 3 days in class talking about it. So when you take the exam, even if you don't see it, force it in somewhere. Because the problem is not that we're not asking about that thing we talked about for 3 days. It's that you didn't see it in the question.
Right.
So find somewhere to just put in there so that I can give you points, because I know that you know about that concept.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh, so essay exams are, you know, kind of an exercise in verbal diarrhea. Just spew everything you know out onto this page. And if you can make it coherent, that's better. But as long as you say all the things, you're better off.
Okay.
And once I got that tip, man, like I think my first semester GPA was like a 2.3. And I think even with that, I finished with like a 3.3, 3.4 overall.
That's impressive.
Like it just that one little tip, it clicked and it all flowed. Yeah. And that was the same thing with the tip about page turns.
Mm-hmm.
And that makes it so much easier to pace things too.
Mm-hmm.
Because to me, it's like, you know, when I'm outlining and breaking up the different sections of the comic, it's like, okay, the first section is either 3 or 5 pages in most cases.
Yep.
And then from there on, depending on how many pages, it's going to be, for the most part, even number of pages, or maybe the last section's odd pages, depending on where you're ending. Because you always want that page turn. To me, the cleanest break for a section is going to be at the page turn.
Agreed.
So you're in the page and you've got a new view on the story.
Yeah.
So that was like that one tip. I was like, oh, that helps my pacing infinitely.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Well, I read their book, and I don't know if this was just specifically a Kickstarter exclusive part of the book, but at the end of Heroes and Zeros, there's a 2-page comic by Gail Simone. Now, I don't really talk about creators that I like often on the Nerding podcast or on here, but Gail Simone is a creator I've been following since I got on Twitter years ago.
How can you not love Gail, especially
That's what I'm saying. She is amazing. Gail is phenomenal, and I love that she's doing. I think she's doing 3 X-Men books right now.
I know she's doing Uncanny X-Men. Is she? Yeah, I think you're right.
I know she's doing Uncanny, and I know she's doing. Is it the Astonishing X-Men? I think she's doing.
I'd have to look. Like it is, but and she's doing something. She did something over at DC.
Yeah, she's done so much.
Got her Red Sonja novel coming out.
Yep.
Which I was like, the artist on that was one of her Red Sonja artists is Walter Giovanni.
Oh, nice.
Oh yeah, and man, I'll admit I was not familiar with Walter because I've not read Red Sonja comics. But once she's like, yeah, I'd like to work with him on this, and I reached out to him, and his response was, I'm really busy, but I'll never turn down a chance to work with Gail. So I'm like, same, man, same.
Yeah. So I gotta know, like, how did you get Gail on to do this 2-page comic?
So Gail is one of the folks that I've known for years through my wife, and who's
okay.
friend, and is truly a lovely human being and one of the most generous and encouraging people out there.
Yeah.
Aside from her immense talent, like I don't think I've ever seen her turn down a request for advice or tips or anything. Like she will gladly go out and talk to you about comics, no matter who you are or what you're doing. And so when I was wanting to do this, and I was like, I was nervous. I'll be honest. Like I was really proud of the book. I really love this story, and I thought the entire creative team just killed it. But I was nervous because I've never done a Kickstarter. Nobody knows me as a writer. I'm terrible at self-promotion. I'm terrible at social media. Like, I'm just not good at that stuff.
You sound like an introvert.
Comic writer is an introvert. Who would ever have thought that?
Right.
But yeah, But I need to hire a Gen Z, like a 20-year-old to do my social media.
Honestly, I feel the same.
That to put into that yet either. So help me make it big so I can hire a 20-year-old to do my social media. That's the goal.
Yeah.
So I was like, I love this idea of a bonus story at the end, use it as a stretch goal, but it's only going to be really enticing as a stretch goal if at least one of the people attached to it is, a name. And at that point, like I was like, okay, this to me feels different from like going up to let's say Tom Rainey, who did a variant cover for us. This feels a lot different than going up to Tom Rainey and saying, hey, Tom Rainey, who's drawn everything over the years, who drew X-Men, who drew, Incredible Hulk and everything else. You want to draw my comic, Tom Rainey? Like, I feel a lot better saying, hey, Tom, I've got this thing that I've already done. How about doing a variant cover for me? Would that be cool? And same thing. Like it feels like a much smaller ask to do a little add-on that will help boost the campaign and boost the profile of it. And so I reached out to Gail, and she was just immediately like, yeah, of course I will. Like, okay, then let's do this thing. So, and because she had been like, I knew how busy she was. I knew all these things that were coming out. And, like, I wanted it to be as stress-free as possible for her.
Yeah.
So I basically sent like 4 or 5 different story prompts. I was like, use one of these, don't use one of these. I am not telling Gail Simone what to do. But if this makes it easier for you and you like one of these, run with it.
Yeah.
And the story she did, Mortimer the Magnificent, was based on one of those prompts, and she just again worked her magic with it and made it something far more incredible than I had imagined with that little prompt about the bunny that appears on page 4 of the comic. So and like I say, I thought that would be a fun little tie-in too. Like, there's just this sort of funny little moment at the beginning where one of the Zeros, Allison, is in this job interview and trying to pretend she has this psychic ability to talk to animals.
That is a great way to open a comic, honestly.
And it doesn't go well for her.
No.
But then to bring it back at the end with the bunny and have that little twist at the end, I think that just, man,
that was great.
That brought it home.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it, and the fact that she made it like a 2-page story was just phenomenal.
Right. And I actually didn't, because again, I'm no scholar when it comes to literature or any of this stuff. I read what I read. I like what I like, but I'm not the guy that could tell you this and that about classic literature. So when she asked me to put in the thanks to the author of Watership Down, I had to go. I was like, Watership Down. That sounds like. I went and I was like, oh yeah, it was that. I remembered it from the animated thing when I was a kid, but it was never something that I had really gotten into or remembered. And let's just say that some of the things that those bunnies are saying to each other in that story may not be for young ears if they understand that language. So,
okay.
Oh, she just, you're gonna go look that up now, aren't you?
I really am. Yeah.
Find out what the bunnies are saying to each other.
Yeah, I gotta know now. But honestly, Paul, like I said, I really enjoyed the story. I really enjoyed like the artwork, everything that you did with this.
Thank
you. My final question, before we really wrap up, you said that there's essentially 3 issues of Heroes and Zeros that you've written, but in regards to Acorn Comics in general, is there more that people can expect from you in the future?
Absolutely. And now, as a creator yourself, I know you can understand this. What I'm saying, I'm trying not to get out over my skis with it.
Yeah.
I'm trying to do this in a sustainable way so that I don't run into a situation where I can't pay one of the artists or have to put something on hold for so I'm going really slow with it. So right now we've got the Olympian coming out. Target for that one is going to be March or April of 2025.
Okay.
And that is a story of a young man of Greek heritage living in a small town in New Hampshire that may or may not be loosely based on one of the towns I went to high school in.
Okay.
He, when in his grandparents' attic, discovers a talisman that allows him to obtain the power of the Greek gods. But of course, there's others that are now after it, now that the talisman's been awakened, and he's just a 20-something guy that runs a pizza restaurant and hangs out with his friends. Really isn't so sure about this whole, powers of the gods thing. So,
Okay.
So he's so that's the first issue of that's going to be a 5-issue series that I'm hoping
Nice.
to be able. I'm hoping to be able to speed all of these up. But
Okay.
first issue's next year. The second issue will hopefully be in 2026, and I may be able to get 2 in 2026. Second issue of Heroes and Zeros is going to be coming out later next year. So
Sweet.
target for that is probably August or September. To get that Kickstarter going, unless I somehow find a generous patron who just wants to pay for it so I can just publish it and do pre-orders on the website, but we're not there yet. So
let's hope.
So that's there. I've got, like I said, I think I've got the first 3 issues of the Olympian finished of the initial 5-issue arc.
Okay.
The Heroes and Zeros, like I say, that's 154 pages of comics. It's already scripted. With room, if there's an audience for it, there is room to go and ideas to build out on from the end of that story, and make that more of a continuing. I've got some other ones that I'm working on because now that I've started writing again, it's not something that I think I'm going to be able to stop doing.
Yeah. It's an addiction, honestly.
And it really is. And it's like, I write these for myself and I love being able to make them a reality. My goal, honestly, is my real goal is I don't want to lose money making them. I'd like to be able to break even on it. If I get a bigger audience, that's fantastic. I'd love it. I think people love the stories, but
I agree with that.
But for now, man, hey, let me not lose money. but it's like any other hobby, man. You put money into your hobby, and most of the time you don't get something back from it. So
that's true.
Yeah. And I'm working on. I've got one kind of sci-fi graphic novel that is in very, very early stages of development. Like I've got the general idea, a little bit of an outline. I've talked to a friend who's an artist who may be interested in doing it, but that's going to be big. I'm going to have to save up some money to be able to do that one.
Yeah.
If we want to do it. And then I'm working on one that's a comedy.
Oh.
In the vein of The Tick.
Okay.
And this is one of the reasons I was really disappointed I didn't make it to Baltimore this year because, man, I don't get starstruck very often. But I want to meet Ben Endlin.
Yeah.
I really wanted to meet because I've never seen him at a show before.
That would have been nice.
First time I've ever seen him at a convention. And man, I love The Tick. I love the comics. I love the animated series. I'm okay with the 2 live action ones.
I like the animated series. It was good.
Yeah, the animated series was classic, man. I still love going back and watching that. And like I say, the original run that he did on the comics was also, to me, just a classic. One of the best indie comics that's ever been made. So, but the problem with that is, to me, it's a lot harder to write comedy than to write action.
It is, yeah.
And you just kind of got to make sure that you're hitting those notes. And if you're trying to write a comedy, obviously there's still going to be some dramatic elements to it, like unless you're just doing a true slapstick. But to me, that doesn't have. You've got to have some conflict. You've got to have some drama involved. But you've got to make that drama funny.
Yeah.
and that man, that is harder than I thought. So
it is,
that one's going slow. I've got the general concept for it. I've got, I think, the first 10 pages written and then some outlining, but I'm hoping that come 2027 or 2028, one of those 2 projects is going to be able to get actually into production.
I like it. I am definitely here for it. Well, thanks, Paul, for jumping on here and doing this interview. It was a pleasure and a joy.
And again, Gary, thank you so much for having me, and I really appreciate it.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And great talking to you. Like I always enjoy talking to you online as well, but great talking to you in person. And hopefully I see you at a convention next year. Usually I'm at more than I was at this year. The travel schedule got a little screwy, but but hopefully I run into you at one of these cons in the next couple of years, or in the next year, and go grab a meal, go grab a drink after the show or something.
Yeah, that's the goal. I'm hoping to go to some more cons, either as a vendor or as a patron, just to kind of meet some more people myself. So that would be great. We'll have to exchange notes.
You're in South Carolina, right?
Yes.
Get down to Orlando, man. Come down to MegaCon.
Oh yeah, definitely. I'm gonna make a plan for that.
I want to say that's in February. So that's kind of the hometown show. And we're in Jacksonville, but that's always been my wife's hometown show. That's actually where she started back when it was a lot less mega than it is now.
Okay.
It was in a hotel conference room the first year she went.
Nice.
So yeah, she's been there from almost from the beginning. So that one holds a very special place for us. And it was the first convention I went to because at the time, that was the one she worked at. So within a year of dating, she brought me into the show, and
it's been history since then.
Yeah. Like I said, I had no idea who I was meeting that week.
Yeah.
But it was incredible.
That is awesome. Well, Paul, tell people where they can find you, follow, and get more of your work.
Absolutely. You can check out the website, which is acorncomics.com. We've got up our web store up. You can still get some of those Kickstarter edition physical comics with the Gail Simone backup story and the Tom Rainey variant cover. The digital edition is the straight digital edition. It doesn't have the Kickstarter extras. And once the Kickstarter overstock is gone, it's gone. So I'm hoping to get that sold. So I know we're recording this on the 14th. I've originally put up that any sales through the 15th are going to go towards Hurricane Milton relief.
Mm-hmm.
I'm probably going to extend that through the end of the month.
Awesome.
So if anyone's watching this, go to the website. You can also find Acorn Comics on Threads, on Instagram. I think it's under my name on Blue Sky, or it's EZA ESQ. So Eza Esquire on Blue Sky, but I think Acorn Comics also pops up in the name. Acorn Comics on Facebook as well. So we're out there, even though I'm not good at social media. I'm on social media. You can find me, and then the website. Hey, go buy some comics. Read my story, but you also get extra Gail Simone work that you're not going to get anywhere else. And everything other than shipping costs through the end of the month is going to go towards hurricane relief. So please help me sell out so I can order more comics.
Please do, you guys. Follow my lead, because as soon as I'm done with this recording, I am going on and I'm buying at least one, because I saw a variant cover and I absolutely need it.
Oh, what is it? The Scooby-Doo or the Rainy?
I think it's the Rainy one.
I'm
pretty sure it's the Rainy one.
With the officer busting through the window?
Yes, it's the Rainy one.
Yep. That's Tom Rainey, man.
That is the one I want. I need it. So I'm getting
it. All right. I'll keep my eyes open for it.
All right. Well, thank you again, Paul, for coming on here. This has been great. Everyone, if you haven't, follow Acorn Comics on all social media. Will be in the description below. And buy some comics, because honestly, you won't regret it.
All right. Hey, thanks so much, Gary. Great talking to you.
It was great talking to you too, Paul. Everyone, y'all have a good one. And again, this has been Divergent Comics.